A healing factor is, in my opinion, the best superpower that there is, as it keeps a person permanently in perfect health, and who wouldn't want that? It means that a person's strength and skills can be at their peak levels for all of time, because this power also stops you from aging. But a healing factor not only allows a person to heal their body, like most superpowers, it has a knock-on effect on the rest of your body and gives a person even more abilities. And this video is going to go over all the extra powers that a healing powered person would have. They don't need to sleep. Now, we sleep to rest our minds and so that necessary maintenance can be done on our minds and on our body to keep us in balance and healthy. But if a person has a healing factor keeping their body permanently balanced and permanently healthy, then logically, they wouldn't need to sleep. Because to a normal human, sleeping is not voluntary because we need it to do all this necessary maintenance. But healing factor people can just say, no, I'll be perfectly healthy either way, so they just wouldn't need to sleep. It's not even a case that they would have to fight being tired, they just wouldn't get tired the way we do. So not only would you live longer than a normal human, but you'd also live more. It's estimated that a person spends roughly a third of their life asleep. Some cases it's more, some cases it's less, but on average it's a third of your life. So we could easily say 30 years of your life would be spent sleeping. So people with a healing factor live a third longer than the rest of us every single day, which is a pretty useful ability. Just imagine how much more you could get done if you didn't need to sleep. Especially since this enhanced endurance means that you won't get tired as easy, so you'll also have more energy in general. Not to mention, since you are pretty much immortal, you're going to be living for a third longer each day, as well as living for an insane length of time. Pretty friggin' awesome. Super strength. Believe it or not, all humans have super strength. You see, there's this thing called hysterical strength, and it's when a person is pushed beyond their natural limits and gets super strength. The classic example is a woman whose child is trapped under a car and is going to die. So in order to save the kid's life, the mother lifts the car. And the reason she can do this is because seeing her child in mortal danger gets so much adrenaline and other chemicals pumping through her body that she is able to ignore her normal limits and break through and lift up that car. Though sadly, her muscles and tendons will rip and tear, and it will mess her body up something fierce, possibly crippling her for life. Because there's a reason we're not supposed to do these great feats of strength. They destroy our bodies. And normally, pain stops us from doing that in order to protect us. But we can push ourselves beyond those limits in the right circumstances. It's how men were able to build pyramids. They lifted and pushed enormous slabs of stone, and everyone always says, how did they get them up there without technology? That must have been impossible. How could you do it? It's just not possible. And the reason's quite simple. They worked them to death. Now, humans shouldn't be able to move stones as big as the pyramid stones. True. But if you push them to their limits and work them so that they literally die from pushing that rock, then they will be able to push it. But again, they will die. Which is why a normal person can't do anything like this. But if you've got a healing factor, none of that matters. You can push yourself to these crazy levels. You can lift a car with ease. You can move the giant slabs of stone that the pyramids are made of, because any damage that you get from pushing yourself to these insane levels will just heal instantly. So anyone with a healing factor does have super strength, because they're able to do all those insane feats that people normally shouldn't do. And of course there's the fact that muscles grow in the first place by being torn and then healing. It's why we call bodybuilders ripped. And if you have a healing factor, then that means growing muscles would be so much easier and faster than a normal person. You just have to lift something ridiculously heavy, rip all the muscles in your arms and legs, and they'll just grow back even stronger thanks to your healing factor. So you'd not only have super strength because you can push yourself further than a normal human can be pushed, but you'd also have a great physique and a very high muscle mass. And this would be the same for anyone with healing powers. Enhanced senses. A person with a healing factor would have all of their senses in peak physical condition, meaning they'd have perfect eyesight, hearing, and smell. So much like Wolverine, they might be able to track someone like a dog does, tracking the scent. But at the very least, they would have an extremely enhanced sense of the world around them, because all of their senses are taking in so much more than our old senses do. I mean, even at the age of 20, a lot of our senses have been deadened because we've lived 20 years with them and they've been suffering some damage. But if you had a healing factor, that damage doesn't exist and they're all perfect. Which means they'd be pretty much amazing at everything, as their accuracy and aim would be enhanced. Deathstroke's amazing aim looks impressive, but if you had the enhanced senses that he has, well then we could all throw a knife perfectly, or always hit that bullseye. Or in day-to-day life, we'd just be amazing at sports, basketball, American pool, darts. Basically anything that involves good hand-eye coordination, you would have an edge at, because you've just got a much better body. I mean, think of it like this. If you're going to play a game of basketball, you want to be at your peak, you want to be focused, you want to be good. But if you went in there and you were hungover or you damaged your knee, well, you're not going to play as well, are you? You're hungover, so you're not going to be able to see as well, you're not going to be able to aim as well, not going to be able to run as well, and with your leg hurt, just any movement's going to be more difficult. But if you've got a healing factor and you're in perfect condition, you will be amazingly focused and you would be able to hit shots that you've never been able to hit before, because you're just better. And even their brain processing power would be increased, as their brain is in perfect physical condition at all times. I mean, everyone's brain suffers damage over time, especially as you get older and you can get conditions like Alzheimer's. But even when you're younger, your brain does steadily get less and less effective. But with a healing factor, that's not an issue. I mean, all of this basically means that you'd be like Daredevil, because his enhanced senses give him a kind of radar of the world around him. And with these enhanced senses and this enhanced processing power, you'd have something similar, as you'd be extra aware of your surroundings at all times than a normal person would be. And personally, I must admit, I think this would drive you insane, because it would just overload you. I know I've said you've got superior brain processing power, but that may actually just mean you're getting too much information. And to be fair, you probably would adjust to it eventually, but I still think it would be frustrating from time to time. Just think of that time a car alarm went off and just wouldn't stop and it gave you such a headache. Now imagine if you could hear it from twice as far away and twice as loud. So this particular power is both a blessing and a curse. Super speed and super jumps. Now this is really part of the super strength in a way, but technically is a separate power. But again, since a person with healing powers can push themselves further, they have super speed and they can jump super high. And they can also jump from heights to the ground and not break their bodies, much as Deadpool has done in his films. It does still hurt because, you might break your ankle, but since it heals instantly, you can do these super jumps. Now you can also jump super high from the ground. People on drugs can easily jump 15 to 20 feet in the air, and can push themselves even higher if they tried. And healing people could easily do this. Now I know a normal person jumping that high does sound hard to believe, but I've actually seen a man jump 15 feet straight up in the air. I was at Reading Festival back in 2010, and it was insane, and if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it myself. But if you're on the right drugs, you can actually do things like this. Though of course you'll also tear muscles, tendons, and end up in hospital with permanent lifelong damage. So you shouldn't really do it. But if you've got a healing factor, that's not really an issue. So you can push yourself further, which means you can run faster and jump higher. You can just keep going, and whereas a normal person would have to stop because it would start ripping our muscles and tendons, a healing factor person doesn't have to stop and can just keep going. It's pretty amazing. Make a clone army. If a person can regenerate a limb, then there is no reason that you couldn't tear off their arm and have that arm grow into a duplicate person. Lobo actually does this quite a lot in the comics, where he cuts himself or tears off a limb and then it grows into a perfect duplicate of him. And although the clone may not necessarily have the same memories as you, it would still be a perfect duplicate. So you could quite easily make an army made entirely of you. Of course, they'd all have free will and might not necessarily have the same memories as you, and there is of course a chance that they wouldn't want to listen to you and do what you say. But with that being said, since you are of course all the same person, in theory, you'd get along quite well, and hopefully be able to work together quite well as well. So you'd probably all be able to work together for the same goal, and you would essentially have a clone army. Now I know in comics and other media, they use the master molecule theory to get around this, which means that there is basically just one part of a person that is that person. It is the masterpiece, and that is the only part that will heal and grow a body fully. So you can't just cut off a limb and it regrows. But in real life, if a person could regenerate and heal the way these people do, there's no reason you couldn't rip off an arm and have another person grow from it. And like I said, Lobo and other characters have done it in the comics, so it makes perfect sense. You can't get fat. This is debatably the most useful aspect of having a healing factor. After all, who doesn't eventually end up having a problem with their weight? Now, the reason you get fat in the first place is because we eat more food than we burn off, and that food gets stored as fat. And when this happens to excess, we gain weight and we get fat and become obese. But if you had a healing factor, you'd find it very hard, if not impossible, to get fat, because you don't sleep and your body is being kept in perfect health, both of which means you would be burning a lot of calories. And even if you managed to get fat, it wouldn't actually matter, because you could just chop off your leg and all that fat would be burned away, growing you a new leg. So not only would a healing factor keep you healthy, it'd keep you an appropriate weight for your body type, which is a very useful bonus power, as a healthy weight is so difficult to maintain, especially as you get older. Although with a healing factor you wouldn't technically get older, so it wouldn't be an issue in that sense, but still, I think we can all agree keeping a trim figure is a very useful ability. And when I say you can keep a trim figure, you also wouldn't have to watch what you eat. You could eat greasy foods and foods that are high in sugar, because your skin will stay clear and your arteries can't get clogged and your teeth can't rot away either. So you can eat and drink whatever you want, because if any damage is done to your body, it'll just get fixed. Even if your teeth did manage to rot away, you just grow new ones. So technically, you wouldn't need to brush your teeth either. In fact, a lot of the normal maintenance we do in our day-to-day just wouldn't be necessary with this power. So basically, you can't get fat and you can be very lazy, both of which are amazing powers I think we can all agree we would all want. You can make vaccines and cures. This is a bit more of an altruistic aspect of this power. Since a healing-powered person's body can fight off any virus or any disease, that means their immune system is developing antibodies to fight them all off. Basically, the healing factor is just developing antibodies super fast that are able to combat any known virus or disease. So these antibodies can in turn be used to make vaccines. Put simply, if there was a person with a healing factor in the real world, then we should just infect them with every virus and disease there is, and within a couple of years, if not months, we'd be able to obliterate every disease and virus on the planet, which, needless to say, would be insanely useful, because we would help a lot of people and save millions, if not billions, of lives. Not to mention there would be trillions of dollars that could be made doing this. After all, if you were able to make a cure to any virus and disease, you could make a lot of money off that. I mean, just having a cure to cancer or AIDS, and you'd never have to work another day in your life. And of course, there is also the possibility that through blood and bone marrow transfusions, and possibly organ transplants, you could actually give people healing factors as well. You could just take the kidneys of someone with a healing factor, put them in a normal person, and potentially they could develop a healing factor. It wouldn't necessarily work like that with this, of course. This is a bit of a grey area, and it would probably vary from person to person. But in theory, this could help millions of people. And again, you could use this to make billions, if not trillions of dollars, because people would pay enormous amounts of money for this possibility. After all, if you went to someone like Bill Gates and said, "Hey, I can make you immortal," he would definitely give you a few billion for that. So a healing factor is really a license to print money. And those are all the extra superpowers that a person with a healing factor would have. Do you agree with the ideas that I have listed? And are there any other superpowers that you think a healing-powered person would have as well? Feel free to let us know in the comments, as I'd very much be interested to know if there are any other powers, because these are all the ones I could think of. And I'd just like to say that we have some new merchandise available on the Needle Mouse store, so feel free to check that out. And I'd like to say a quick thank you to those who made this video possible by donating to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.